A big Friday welcome into lcpioneers.com live, presented by PioStream. We're on the air 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, keeping you connected to student athletes, coaches, alumni, and members from the Lewis and Clark College community on our Facebook Live channel. You can find it easily, lcpioneers.com/live, and you can also watch on demand as you'd like at youtube.com/lcpios. We appreciate taking the time to join us. As I mentioned, it is Friday, and we will close out our week continuing to look at things from the fall 2020 perspective. Classes are underway on Palatine Hill, and we are excited to welcome in our guests in just a little bit. We'll talk to the Vice President of Student Life and Dean of Students, Robin Holmes-Sullivan. A chance to talk to her about how things are going, all the preparation that Lewis and Clark worked into the fall 2020, getting ready for students to be on campus, what some of the things they've seen so far in the positive light, certainly, and then also what's still points of emphasis going forward as we navigate the rest of the semester amidst the pandemic that continues. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. I'm Ryan Goff. I'm the play-by-play voice and Director of Athletic Communications for Lewis and Clark College. We are the Pioneers, based in Portland, Oregon, and a member of the NCAA Division III world with over 430 institutions nationwide, an opportunity for our student athletes to compete on a national scale, and then certainly within the Northwest Conference, institutions from throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington. Our student athletes continue to compete in a 9-team conference, although competition currently halted. The Northwest Conference announcing earlier in August that all fall competition, early winter competition will be suspended until at least January 1st, 2021. We are keeping you updated on our website, lcpioneers.com/COVID. You can go there for any information as it pertains to the Northwest Conference, the NCAA, and then we also do have our link to the fall 2020 reopening plan for Lewis and Clark College as well. We invite you to get involved with the show. If you have a question today for Robin, our guest, or any of our future guests, you can do so in the Facebook comment live comments below, as well as at sports@lclark.edu. We continue to welcome those future guest requests too. If you know somebody who should be on the show, we would love to know. You can keep in touch with us on social media. In addition to Facebook, we are on Instagram and Twitter, LC Pioneers at both. And we continue to announce things on our website in addition to keeping you updated with what's going on regarding fall 2020. And that includes new recruits who have come in. We do have our men's basketball announcement for the incoming 2020-21 class, but also keeping you updated with different things going on within the department. And that includes recently announcing the promotion of 2 members of our sports medicine team. That includes Jeremy Lowe and Tara Boatman, as they are now in charge of sports medicine at Lewis and Clark. Jeremy Lowe, an alumnus of the Pioneers baseball program, is now the head athletic trainer. Tara Boatman, now the associate head athletic trainer, and both continue to support our student athletes greatly with over 30 years combined of experience in sports medicine. Excited to see that they'll continue to lead the program, and they've had a lot of work to do over the course of the first few weeks of getting student athletes back on campus and now into the first week of school. And as I mentioned too, excited to bring you to our YouTube page. We continue to update our playlist of all past lcpioneers.com live shows. You can find that at youtube.com/lcpios. But now we welcome in our guest for the day. We are talking to the Vice President of Student Life and Dean of Students for Lewis and Clark College. We welcome in Robin Holmes-Sullivan to the show. Robin, appreciate you taking the time to join us on this Friday and everything that's going on in terms of the first week of school. I know it's a busy time, but it's an important time to have you on too, to discuss preparation. And now that you're a week into school, a chance to see how things are going. Let's start with that preparation piece. What were some of the things that Lewis and Clark had to do to get ready to welcome students to campus? What were some of the points that you had to make sure were clear?
Thanks, Ryan, and I appreciate you having me on the show. And hello to everyone out there in Pioland. Well, I probably wouldn't be accused of exaggerating if I said that we maybe had over 1,000 things that we had to do in order to prepare for the opening of school. So many things that all of us, those of us who work primarily in the undergraduate college, those of us who work in the graduate college and the law school, utilize various tools just so we could keep track of all the little details, both big and small, that we had to do. Those are things like making sure that we had new policies and procedures, expectations for our residential students when they came onto campus. making sure that we had developed a robust and comprehensive testing protocol as well as surveillance so that we would know what our students were doing and if they were in need of any type of intervention, where they'd been, contact tracing, all the types of things that many colleges are looking at across the country. So it has been an incredible heavy lift. I am very much indebted and in awe of the hard work that our faculty and our staff have been doing to welcome our students back to campus. It's been Herculean, and it's all because the importance of the student experience, which is something that the Division of Student Life has primary responsibility for, but all of us touch the student experience in some way. But it's because that student experience is so important. You can't replicate the student experience at Lewis and Clark by it being all online. And so students were really craving and wanting to have that in-person opportunity to not only be taught by the professors in person, but to interact with uh, staff who are here and support them in various ways, and most importantly, to interact with one another, whether that's through sport or through other type of out of classroom engagement opportunities. You just can't replace that. And so we're just thrilled that our students are back, and we look forward to what the rest of the semester is going to hold.
Yeah, and this is what we like about this show, a chance to connect with other members from the Lewis and Clark College community at large. But it is important to mention that athletics is a department within the Division of Student Life. So super excited to talk about that aspect. Before we get into that, what have you seen in terms of, you know, results over the first week, really week and a half, with NSO happening in the middle of last week? How have things gone so far?
You know, Ryan, I think things have gone really, really well. I would be lying to say that there haven't been bumps and we haven't discovered gaps in our planning. You do a lot of planning, you go over your plans over and over, and then wham, you get in it and you realize, wow, we didn't think about that. And so there are definitely have been some bumps in the road. We've done our best to respond to those gaps or those bumps as soon as possible. I've been really proud of our students. For example, our residence assistants, who play a huge role in the support of our residential students and our residential experience, they got here about August 20th. And they were able to kind of take a look with fresh eyes and say, hey, what about this? We don't think the college has thought about that. And we responded to all of those points of gaps that the RAs were able to see for us. And they continue to meet with me on a regular basis and provide me feedback so that I can work with others and we can respond as soon as possible. So, but in general, we made modifications to our overall move-in process. You know, normally we move in a couple of days. We spread that out over a full week so that we could keep the number of students coming on campus as low as possible to reduce any type of density or contact. We made sure that the students who came early, the RAs, you know, some of the athletes, that they were able to receive a test. We asked students to self-isolate for 2 weeks prior to come to campus or to get a test if they weren't able to self-isolate. And then we started new student orientation. And again, that looked a lot different. It was a mixture of virtual and in-person types of events. The actual groups were much smaller than they normally were so that we could comply with the governor's order of no more than 10 gathering at a time. But they had a great time. They did things from, you know, stargazing to other types of, you know, fun little events that they put on. They got to meet new people and start making those connections. And then we asked them to, you know, think about being in, you know, a pod for the semester. You know, 4 to 6 people that they know and they trust are doing the same type of health mitigation efforts that they're doing, and to stick with that pod. And that's totally different than what we usually say. Go out and meet lots of new people and take, you know, risk and those types of things. We're just asking them to think about this and do this a little bit differently. And so far, I think the students have really responded well. Then we had the first week of classes. We're almost through that now that it's Friday. The first day of class was completely online because we want to minimize any type of interactions the students would normally be having as they go through the add drop period. They did that, you know, well. And then they started their in-person classes for those who had chosen that particular option. And so far, things have been, going as well as you can, given the fact that you made a complete pedagogical change with a mix of in person and online. So it's been going relatively well. And then the other thing we've been doing this week, Ryan, is that we have we've launched our testing program. This is for any asymptomatic testing of all of our undergraduates, both on and off campus. We're hoping to test all 1,600 of our students. I'll be getting some of those results as they roll in this week and at the end of next week. But it's been just, again, a huge effort by our health and wellness team to test each and every undergraduate student.
You're watching lcpioneers.com live, talking to Robin Holmes-Sullivan, Vice President of Student Life and Dean of Students. And you kind of highlighted some of those things specifically to emphasize going forward, the potting and making sure that our students are trying to take the best care of themselves, and then therefore the community stays safe. Specific with athletics, what are some of the things that you've noticed have been different with athletics so far this year, practice plans, and some of those things?
Yes, well, a lot has been different, and all of us have been kind of, to be honest, on pins and needles waiting for the NCAA to give us the direction about if we were going to be able to have competition or not. And as you mentioned at the top end of the show, that decision has been made, and those competitions have been suspended. But we know that it is very important on so many levels for our athletes to continue to be able to interact with one another and to interact as a team. All the research shows that when our students are engaged, when they're able to be either in a club, an organization, or on a sport, that they do so much better throughout their college experience. And so athletics and the ability for our teams to do the things that they do are super important. And so our coaches, I think, have done just a phenomenal job of quickly responding to these restrictions, but putting in place very healthy ways that each of our teams could have team activities and modified practice. And so they all submitted practice plans that were reviewed by the athletic director, as well as our two new athletic director, our student trainers, to make sure that they were safe. And then I had a chance to take a look at those plans as well. So our teams are having some type of modified practice, most of them, or team activities, or a variety of both of those things, so that that connection and that support can continue to happen throughout the semester.
So let's elaborate on, you mentioned student experience, that is the charge of student life, and as I mentioned, athletics, a department within your division of student life. From the top down, what's the overview of some of the ways that student life does have that impact on the student experience?
Right. So sometimes that impact is in kind of educating the rest of the campus about the importance of the type of student engagement activities that happen in student life, such as athletics, making sure that everyone understands why it is so important to support those efforts, whether that's support budgetarily, support emotionally, or promoting those activities to alums or to students who might be interested in coming to the school. And so part of it is just the education and the discussion and making sure that it's prominent in all of our minds. And then a big part of what I see as the role of student life is that we are what I would like to think of as facilitators of student engagement, making sure that those opportunities are there and that they're robust and they lead to student learning. This is not about just fun and games. It's about making sure that the activities and the engagement that we're supporting our students in student life actually leads to an outcome, and that outcome is some type of learning. If we take athletics for example, and I know this personally as a former student athlete myself, you learn so much by being a student athlete. Things like leadership, things like how to have and participate in physical activity that will last a lifetime and keep you healthy. Learning how to deal with disappointment or loss, learning how to deal with success, learning how to be autonomous, how to be a part of a team. I can go on and on. There's learning opportunities throughout these types of activities in athletics. And that's the same, I think, as it happens for our clubs and organizations, through club sports, through intramurals, through student government, and other types of activities that we help to facilitate and support in the Division of Student Life.
You mentioned new student orientation, and we've been showing pictures of the 2019 NSO because things certainly have looked different as we talked about with fall 2020 and the precautions. But that said, this is you're not your first year at Lewis and Clark. Kind of give us our background on how you got to Lewis and Clark and some of the things that drew you to Portland for this opportunity.
Well, I have to be completely honest. I sit with a smile on my face on many, many days thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I'm at Lewis and Clark College as we're going through this pandemic as opposed to where I was previously. I've been primarily at large public Research One universities. I was at the University of California in the system office, and so I was helping to support all 10 campuses. And prior to that, I was at the University of Oregon for the bulk of my career. Again, a very big, large public institution. And I loved all the experiences, don't get me wrong, but the difference of what they are trying to prepare for and deal with compared to, what we're dealing with because of our size and our scale, it's quite different. And I'm just happy that I'm here at Lewis and Clark working with the colleagues that I'm working with in the environment that I'm currently in. So perhaps I just dodged a bullet by by making that change when I did.
Well, we're certainly grateful to have you. And you mentioned being a former NCAA student athlete. How does athletics play specifically into the role of student life at Lewis and Clark? What's the component that it provides to that experience?
It's huge. It's huge on many levels. Probably the most prominent level for the institution, for the college, is that we have well over 20% of our incoming class at any given year. They're student athletes, and so it's a huge recruiting boon for us that we have Division III athletics at the level that we have it. It's one of the things, one of the a really big thing that attracts a student to Lewis and Clark. Not only the outstanding academic experience that is afforded to them if they come to LC, but that they get to do something that they love, continue to be involved in athletics in some way. So it's a huge draw for us, and it's really, really important that our programs are supported and that we utilize the fact that so many people want to come to Lewis and Clark because of our athletic teams. And so that's probably one of the main things. The second thing, as I mentioned earlier, is that we know, and again, our own research bears this out, research across the country bears this out, that student athletes tend to do better. They do better academically, they do better emotionally, they make huge contributions to the community that they're a part of. So it's just a win-win-win situation. There's lots of reasons why you would want to have an athletic department and athletic opportunities on your campus because you get all of these kind of positive inputs as a result of them. And then finally, as I mentioned before, it's the student learning and the lifelong influence that happens for that student athlete. That's been my experience. I use the things that I learned as a student athlete pretty much on a daily basis. And I don't think I would be the administrator that I am or have some of the successes that I've had in my life if it wasn't for the fact that I had been a student athlete.
Robin Holmes-Sullivan joining us on lcpioneers.com live. You can find us live on Facebook Tuesday through Friday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time at lcpioneers.com/live, or watch all of our past shows at youtube.com/lcpios. Now, student athlete, women's basketball, Cal State Fullerton, 5th all-time in scoring still. Do you know the list of those who are ahead of you on that list?
No, I don't look at it because it's kind of painful every time you drop. I stayed at the number one slot for a while, then it just started to slide. So being the typical competitive former athlete that I am, I just don't look at it.
And understandable. That brings us into the idea, though, of strategic direction. And with all of the chaos that has ensued with the pandemic, sometimes it's easy to get lost that you're also establishing the strategic direction that includes the vision for athletics within student life. What are some of the bullet points, one or two things that you can think of that you really want to see as you develop the division?
Well, I have to be honest with you, Ryan. Right now, all of us are suffering from planning fatigue because that's all we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 months, it seems. And then we'll make a plan, and we have to throw that plan out because some new requirement or condition has come into the forefront, and then we make another plan. So planning fatigue, it is a real thing. And COVID really has put a lot of things kind of on the back burner because it just requires so much of our attention. But I am really looking forward to, and I know the rest of us in the division are really looking forward to getting back to some of the really great goals that we established with our strategic direction last year. The Division of Student Life will be having our kickoff meeting at the end of this month, where we will revisit and reaffirm that it is really time for us to get back to some of those goals. Main things we're looking at is we want to reimagine the student experience at Lewis and Clark College. It's good, it needs to be great. And so we're doing a variety of things to create and reimagine that student experience with our students, because it can't be a top-down thing. It can't be something that we cook up in our kitchen. It's got to be something that is informed by and really co-authored by our students themselves. And they're very excited about doing this. We did a lot of kind of focus group contact with students as we came up with this goal, and we know that they're excited to think about doing that. We're also wanting to make sure that the facilities and kind of the infrastructure that's on our campus is reflective of what a Lewis and Clark student of the 21st century needs. And so we're looking at all of our facilities, especially the Templeton Student Center. I've been working this summer along with others on some plans for renovating that facility. Of course, we've also been talking to athletics about renovation of Pamplin and some other student-facing buildings as well. And so those are two of the really strong goals that we have and we've been working on, and we want to really get back to as we kind of kick off the year going forward.
Well, I know there's been a lot of chaos, and you have been working a ton with your division to get everyone ready to go for fall 2020. I appreciate the update, but certainly appreciate the time. Robin Holmes-Sullivan, thanks for joining us on lcpioneers.com live.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, fun to have a chance to have these conversations, because otherwise a lot of times that's not the case. We aren't able to make time when things are going around, 2 semesters a year, the summer planning and all of the things to try to get something off the ground in normal times without a pandemic, but let alone when this COVID-19 is still very much present in our life. And I appreciate her giving us the update on some of the successes that they've had so far with the preparations now becoming reality, now the first week of school underway. And we'll continue to update too experiences that our current student athletes are having. There's a mixture. There's some student athletes who are on campus and taking classes in person, many students who are off campus and taking classes in person, and with all those moving parts, all the precautions that are there in order to facilitate that. But I agree with Robin, it's definitely something where it's the best experience for our students to have the opportunity to take in-person classes, and we'll see how that happens coming up in the following weeks. But I do know with some of the conversations I've had with student athletes and coaches, certainly a point of emphasis that the community is taking care of one another. The we before me at LC mantra is certainly there, and I am very thankful for that in just a one-person reflection. So we'll continue to have conversations like this in the coming weeks, and next week we already have 3 of our guests secured. We'll talk to Emily Thompson, an alumnus of women's soccer and women's track and field, on Tuesday. She's now worked in the marketing realm, including a stint with Red Bull. That might be exactly where she is at this point, in fact, now that I think about it. So excited to catch up with Emily and have a chance to see how things have been going for her since she graduated from Lewis and Clark. And then current rising senior, school's underway, senior Nicholas Campen of men's rowing, a chance to talk between classes. It'll be a different format on Wednesday when we have a chance to talk to Nicholas, because I think he has to catch an 11:40 or 11:45 class. So we'll have the guest segment right off the bat to make sure to facilitate the schedule for him. And then Aaron Campbell, the head track and field coach for Lewis and Clark, will join us on Thursday. We'll continue to update our guests and have those posted. We usually do all of our Facebook Live thumbnails and events scheduled over the course of the weekend before they're on. So you should see all of those soon at lcpioneers.com/live. So until we talk to you on Tuesday for our next show, we're live Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Big thanks to you for watching, and Robin Holmes-Sullivan for joining us on this episode. I'm Ryan Goff. Have a great weekend. We will talk to you again soon, and you can catch all of our past shows on our YouTube page, youtube.com/lcpios. Until then, thanks for having fun with us. Goodbye, everybody.
I'm Casey Jones, and I teach a range of classes: general chemistry, organic chemistry, and also some advanced classes. And I have a research lab that currently I have 4 students working with me as part of the Rogers program. The summer experience is a way to get really deeply involved in the science that is here and be able to start to define what might be what you want to do next. So the brown bag gives our students a chance to explain their research and really show the context and the application of what they're doing to a very broad range of students and faculty.
It's interesting to be able to communicate to other scientists what your work is, and it forces you to learn how to talk about your subject so that not only experts in your field can understand it, but others can understand it as well, which I just believe is a good life skill.
To talk about your research in a way that anybody can understand it really is a valuable experience, and it's something that you don't get a lot of practice for except in these contexts. Because oftentimes you're giving a presentation to a classroom filled with people who know basically the same things that you do, but in a brown bag, you have to be able to explain and provide motivation for everything that you're working on and why it's important and why it's relevant to be studying.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. Getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did Winterim last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds. Me being an econ major and my 2 group mates being chemistry majors, we really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.